So, again, to be familiar with the notation, baka nalilito pa rin sa mga notations natin about equivalence relations. So, to recap again, meron tayong equivalence class. So, an equivalence class is a set or a subset of X containing all elements that are related to each other. So, X over R is the set containing all Y in X, capital X, such that X is related to Y or Y is related to X. It doesn't matter kasi transitive naman. Reflexive and symmetric naman. So, X R Y, Y R X, it doesn't really matter because here R is an equivalent relation. So, whenever you have an equivalence relation R, then you can always find an equivalence class. So, yan yung equivalence class. Now, yung mga equivalence class na to, for each X, it may or it may not be unique. Okay? So, pag kinuha mo na yung mga distinct equivalence classes and you form it into a set, then that forms the quotient set. So, ang quotient set is denoted by X over R, capital X over capital R. So, this is an equivalent class. So, this is dependent on R, ha? Kaya may over R. So, dependent on R. So, the quotient set of X by R is all the equivalence classes. All the distinct equivalent classes. X element of the capital X. So, this is a quotient set. Okay. Now, pag meron ka namang partition, partition naman, yung X, capital X over a partition, that's the induced partition. Or rather, the induced relation. So, it's a relation. Definition muna. Sige. This contains, it's the induced. This is the relation induced by T. So, in this relation, X is related to Y if and only if there exists a set in the partition such that X and Y belong to the same set. Yan. Now, yun namang X over this induced relation, so this X over T, is simply T. Pero this is the quotient set. This is the quotient set of X by R equal. So, ang R dito, yung induced relation. Okay? So, be very careful with the notation. Yan. Dapat naiintindihan nyo ano yung difference ng mga notations na yan. So, ito ay set. Ang mga laman niyan, lahat ng are related to each other. Ito ay set na ang laman, mga equivalence classes. Ito ay induced relation. So, ang laman nito, ordered pairs. Pero yung mga ordered pairs are the elements that belong to the same set in the partition. So, ito R. R din to ah. This is an R. Induced. Pero induced siya ng partition. Okay. And then this one is the quotient set. So, it contains all the equivalence classes of the induced relation. So, parang, kumbaga, ito yung R. Tapos, in that sense, makakabuo ka ng mga equivalence relations. So, ano mga equivalence relations nito? Ang mga equivalence relations dyan ay X, small x, tapos induced relation R. Ito yung equivalence relation or equivalence classes of the induced relation. Ano yung induced relation? Ito yung induced relation. Yan. So it's a different, these three are different relations different to this. So meron ka munang partition dito. Ang unang given dito, you have R is given. Dito ang given yung partition, T is given. So pag T ay given, makaka-induce ka ng relation, then yung relation na yon, since it's an equivalent relation, makaka-induce ka ng equivalence class or mafo-form mo yung mga equivalence class, then these equivalence classes will form the quotient set. So yun din. Okay? So yung pinakita natin kanina, this is the same as T. This set here is the same as T. Yun yung pinakita natin kanina. Okay, so let's discuss simple examples para mas maintindihan natin yung nangyayari doon sa partition. So, let's say we have C, the set of integers, to be partitioned by the set of even integers and odd integers. So, we know that T, comprising of E and O, is a partition. Okay? Alam natin yan, partition siya ng Z. Since partition siya ng C, then we must be able to form or to induce a relation which is induced by this partition. So let R be that induced relation. So C over T. So ano definition ng induced relation na to? Pag meron kang A related kay B, that would mean that either AB is in the set E or AB is in the set O. Kasi ang definition ng induced relation, there must exist a set in the partition such that the X and Y, or in this case A and B, belongs to the same set. So either they belong both to E, kasi dalawa lang naman yung set, either they belong to E or they belong to O. Now, if both of them belongs to E, then that means that both of them are even. So we have either AB are even or AB are odd. So either pareho silang even or pareho silang odd. Pero kung either pareho silang even or pareho silang odd, that would mean that A is actually congruent to B mod 2. Ibig sabihin, pagka ang A at B ay parehong even, then A minus B is 0 mod 2. Tama? Pag ang A at B ay parehong even, then A minus B is 0 mod 2. So, congruent sila. Now, what if pareho silang odd? Pag pareho silang odd, then parehong 1 ang remainder. Pag dinivide mo sa 2. Diba? 3 at 7. So, pag sinubtract mo sila, edi A minus B is also congruent to 0 mod 2. So, in either case, A is congruent to B mod. So, ang ibig sabihin pala nito, yung na-induce natin na relation, yung C over T is the same as the modulo relation 2. Congruence modulo 2 rather. So, i-partition mo siya into odd even, may mapoproduce siyang relation. Yung relation na yon is defined by either both of them are even or both of them are odd. Pero ultimately, that relation is equivalently saying that A is always congruent to B mod 2. Either both of them leaves a remainder 0 or both of them leaves a remainder 1. So which means A is congruent to B mod 2. But of course, the modulo relation is defined by the modulo relation A minus B is congruent to 0 mod 2. Right? So that means that the induced relation is the same as the mod 2 relation. Mod 2 congruence relation. Okay? Yun yung ibig sabihin na yung ini-induce na relation ng partition ay nag-i-induce ng partition which is the same partition being induced by the induced relation. Puro induced, di ba? So ang i-induce na ito, ang ini-induce niyang partition precisely either you are you leave a remainder of 0 or both of the numbers leave a remainder 1. Pero when you leave a remainder 0, meaning both of you are even. When you leave a remainder 1, both of you are odd. But both of you being even or both of you being odd is the induced relation by the partition even and odd. Yan. Okay. Let's have another example. So, let X be the set containing, ito medyo simplihan lang natin, B, C, D, E, finite, para ma-compute natin. And let say that we have the partition, so ipapartition ko lang siya, let's say the partition 1 is AB. The partition 2 is the set containing C. And the third element of the partition is the set containing DE. So, let's consider the partition A, B, C, and DE. And this is not the only partition of X. There are other partitions. Well, since the set is finite, there must be a finite partition. Pero there are other partitions of X. For example, the set containing A, the set containing B, the set containing C, and D, and E. So it's a partition. So this is one of the many partitions of X. And this partition will automatically induce a relation. Yan. Of course, again, this is a partition just to check lahat ng element nasa T, A, B, C, D, and E, and none of them is overlapping. So, it's mutually disjoint. Now, how do you get the partition or the relation induced by this partition? So, ang kailangan mo lang naman gawin, i-define yung ordered pair R. Diba? Ang R kasi is an ordered pair on X. Now, ang alam natin, the relation R will be induced by the partition. Meaning, pag meron tayong X na related kay Y, X, R, Y, dapat there exists an A in the partition such that si X at si Y parehong na kay A. Okay? Since finite lang naman yung set natin, madali isa-isahin. Okay, tatlo lang naman yung set natin eh. So, tatlong set lang yung panggagalingan. O, sabihin natin, ito si A1, ito si A2, ito si A3. O. So, anong mga elements ang magkaka-relate dahil kay A1? So, dahil kay A1, yung elements na A ay related sa sarili niya. Of course, dapat. Related ka lagi sa sarili mo. Yung element na A ay related din kay B. Kasi si A tsaka si B belongs to the same partition. Belong to the same set in the partition. Similarly, ganun din yung BA. Diba? And finally, yung B tsaka B. So, these are the so, ano naman yung mga elements ng R na may induce ng A sub 2? Well, isa lang naman yung naman A sub 2, C lang. So, dapat yung C related sa sarili niya. Wala siyang ibang ka-element or related. And finally, sa A3, ano yung mga elements na ma-induce dahil sa A3? So, si B, dapat related sa sarili niya. Dapat related din siya sa iba pang mga elements ng set. And finally, si E, dapat related kay D. And si E, related sa sarili niya. So, all of these are the elements of R. So, here, R is the induced relation. A relation induced by the partition T. So, ang tawag natin sa kanya, X over T. Okay? Now, this is a relation. So, it must induce a partition. So, first, let's take the equivalence classes para makita natin kung ano yung mga may induce niya na equivalence class. Kasi yung equivalence class, yun yung i-induce niya na partition, di ba? So, let's take first the equivalence classes A over R. So, ano yung mga A over R? Yung A over R, lahat ng element na X that belongs to the same set as A. That belongs to the same set. Kasi ito yung lahat ng, let me write the definition. X is an element of X such that lahat ito ka-related ni A. So, lahat ng X na ka-related ni A. Well, ang R natin, again, you will be related if you belong to the same set. Di ba? R will be related, A and B will be related with respect to R if they belong to the same set. Yan. Ito pala. If they belong to the same set. Okay. So, ano yung mga set that belongs to the same set as A? Hindi yung sarili niya. Kasi A is related to A. At saka yung B. Kasi A is related to B. At wala nang iba. So, sila na lahat ng ka-related kay A. Kung kukunin natin yung B related to R, so ito lahat ng set na belongs to the same set as B. So, lahat ng ka-related kay it should be C. The C is just that belongs to the same set as D. So that's D and E. And it's easy to show that this is E over R. So those are equivalence classes. Ang mga equivalence classes, ang X over R ay the set containing or the collection of set containing A and B, containing C, and containing D and E. So these are the equivalence classes induced by R. But as we can see, this is the same as the partition. Yan din yung partition natin, di ba? O, ibig sabihin, which this is the same as X over T is equal to T. Okay? Ayun yung sinasabi nung ating theorem. Sige, isa pang example. So, let X to be the set of integers. And then, so let's define R to be the relation defined by, okay, so X is related to Y if and only if X minus Y is equal to 5K for some K element of C. So first, this equivalence relation, and let's verify that the equivalence relation induced by the partition is indeed the equivalence relation R. Okay, it's easy to show that this is an equivalence relation. First, R is an equivalence relation. Why? Pakita lang natin yung tatlong property ng equivalence relation. Paano ba pakita? So, for every x in Z, alam natin na ang x minus x is equal to 0. Pero syempre, ang 0 is the same as 5 times 0. Tama? So, ibig sabihin, there exists a k, which is 0, such that x minus x is 5 times k. O, di ano ibig sabihin nun? E di x is related to x. Okay na. Next, how to show symmetry. So whenever you want to show symmetry, you assume that you have a relation. So if x and y belongs to C such that x are y, x is related to y. Ano ibig sabihin? So by definition, x minus y is equal to 5k for some k. Okay? But by property of equality or the property of subtraction, diba? Pag meron kang x minus y, diba ang x minus y can be written as negative 1 times y minus x. Nilabas ko lang yung negative. Labas mo yung negative. O de itong x minus y can be written as y minus x equals, yung negative lipat mo sa kabila. Yung negative 1, sa kabila mo lipat. So, 5 times negative k. Kung ayaw mo nun, gamitan mo ng multiplication property of equation. Mag-multiply ka ng negative 1 both side. So, pag nag-multiply ka ng negative 1 both side, negative 1 both side, so yung x minus y, magiging y minus x, yung 5k mo, multiply ng negative 1. So, ganun din. So, that's multiplication property of multiplication. Equation, rather. So, this is for sum k element of c. So, yung y minus x equals sa 5 times something. That's precisely the definition of R. So, ibig sabihin yan, yung y related kay x. Okay na. So, transitive siya. Meaning ito reflexive. Ito, symmetric pala, hindi transitive. Symmetric. And then finally, how do you show that it is of x to 5 times k and ang y related sa c. So, ang y minus z equals sa 5. Again, hindi kailangang unique not necessarily the same. So, let's use another variable. Let's say jkl. L. So, for some k and l in the set of integers. Yan. Now, by manipulating these two equations, we can have, so let's add them. So if I add these two, I'll have x minus y plus y minus z equals 5k plus 5l. But I can factor out 5, right? So I simplify x minus c equals 5 times k plus l. Now, k plus l is still an integer. So, x minus c can be written as 5 times something. 5 times an integer. So, meaning, it follows the relation R. So, ibig sabihin, x is related to c. So, whenever you have x related to y related to c, you also have x related to c. Therefore, it's transitive. And so, it is an equivalence relation. Okay, that's number 1. It is indeed an equivalence relation. So, if it's an equivalence relation, then we can determine its partition using the quotient set. So the quotient set is a partition. So let's determine the partition XR. Okay? That's the quotient set of X over R. So ano yung quotient set ni X over R? Kailangan mo lang hanapin yung mga equivalence classes. Okay? So let's start. Let's say 0. Ano ang mga ka-equivalence classes ni 0? So ito ay ang 0 over R will be the set containing all integer x such that lahat yon ka-related kay 0. Right? Ano ulit yung ibig sabihin ng R? X minus 0 equals some 5 times some integer. So, ibig sabihin nito, this contains, again, x minus 0 is equal, x minus 0 is equal to some 5k. So, x is equal to 5k. Right? So, this is nothing but the 0 bracket 5. Nalala nyo pa yung notation natin? 0 bracket 5. Okay? So, x equals 5k. Now, how about 1 over r? So, 1 over r will be the set containing all integers such that x is related to 1. Ano ibig sabihin ng x is related to 1? X minus 1 is equal to 5k. Or meaning, x is equal to 5k plus 1. X of the form, 5k plus 1, which is 1 bracket 5. Ano mga laman yan? 1, 6, 11, and so on. How about 2? 2 over r is the set containing x element of c such that x is related to 2. Ano ibig sabihin ng x related to 2? By definition, x minus 2 is equal to 5k. Or meaning, x is equal to 5k plus 2. Which is precisely 2 bracket 5. Following the same argument, we have 3 over r equals all x element of C such that x is r related to 3, which is nothing but 3 bracket 5. And 4 over r is equal to all x element of C such that x is related to 4, which is nothing but 4 bracket 5. Now, if you continue, let's say we get 5 over r, then this will be x such that x is related to 5, but that means that x minus 5 is congruent to 5k. Now, that means x is 5k plus 5. So, lahat ng 5k, dagdagan mo ng 5, edi multiples pa rin yun ng 5. Tama? Multiples pa rin ng 5. 0, 5 pa rin yan. 0 bracket 5. And so on. So, pag inulit mo lang inulit, tuloy-tuloy lang, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you will establish the pattern na ang nakukuha mo lang either your 0 over r, 1 over r, 2 over r, 3 over r, and so on. Yun lang yun. Yun yung mga nakukuha mo. So, meaning, na-compute natin na x over r is nothing but the 0 bracket 5, the 1 bracket 5, and so on, up to, sulat ko na lahat. Dalawa na lang eh. 2 bracket 5, 3 bracket 5, and 4 bracket 5. And as we all know, this is a partition of Z. Right? This is actually the partition induced by the modulo relation 5. So, ibig sabihin nun. So, therefore, R is nothing but the modulo relation 5. As a relation to baka malito na naman kayo, sir, ano ibig sabihin ng R is equal to congruent modulo 5? So as a relation, yung relation na to, yung in-induce natin, is the same as the relation, as the modulo relation congruence modulo 5. Okay na. So ibig sabihin, yung partition na to, itong partition na to, ay ini-induce nito, so ito yung x over r.